Hello, and welcome to the Majors of the Month series. I am Emily Long, Senior Career Advisor at High Point University. This series is dedicated to helping you explore and understand what you can do with the various majors HPU offers. Each month, a different major will be highlighted, and we'll host a panel including a faculty member, employer, and career and professional development team member to discuss aspects of the major. The major of this month is game design, and today we'll be speaking with two individuals about what you can do with the game design major. We have Brian Hegney, instructor of game design at HPU, and Lucas Blair, CTO at the Five Network. Within the game design industry, there are various areas you can pursue. Some of those include design, technical, art, writing and narrative, game production, quality assurance, program and engineering, and media, marketing, and sales. And you can also apply your knowledge from your game design degree to other industries. HPU alumni are working in advertising and public relations agencies, radio and TV stations, and are producing corporate and theatrical media throughout the nation. So be sure to utilize what can I do with this major link that you'll see at the end of this panel discussion to further explore your options as a game design major. So let's get started. Professor Hegney, I'll have you start with an introduction for us.
Yeah, my name is Brian Hegney. I'm an instructor here of game design here at High Point University. And I do, you'll probably see me at the Game Development Club where I'm the faculty mentor. I've been here for about 9 years. And before that, I got my start in the architecture and urban design community using game engines to produce real-time simulations in New York City.
Great, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you here. And Lucas, if you could introduce yourself for us, please.
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CTO at the Five Network. So the Five Network, we use technology to basically set people up with mentoring relationships, and we serve a pretty diverse population. And then, so prior to my work at Five, and so at Five, I guess I should also say that like I'm the CTO, but I also lead design efforts, which is the tie-in to the the game design and everything. Prior to that, I've worked in simulation, gaming, had a game company for a bunch of years. So yeah.
Great, thank you so much. We're excited to have both of you here. I've got some great questions for us to talk about the game design major together. And my first question is directed towards Professor Hegney. Why is it great to be a game design major?
Okay, I've got a lot of notes on that, so I don't know how long I can go. But I do want to mention, I want to add to what you said in the beginning with what our alumni are doing in games. You mentioned a lot of the non-game aspects, including one alumni who's working for the government doing anti-terrorism analysis, which is really cool. But a lot of our alumni are working for game companies such as Epic Games, Santa Monica, and then a whole list that I am blanking on, Emanji Studios as well. So a lot are working for AAA game companies and indie studios as well. But why it's great to be a game major here, there's, I guess you could categorize it into fun. So there are fun things you can be doing, like being in the game development club, being in the video game club. We have game jams. So probably like 2 or 3 times a semester, we have a week or sometimes 48 hours, sometimes a whole week where students get together and make up a game that never existed before. And aside from the fun, there's the aspect of how you grow professionally. And if you think about what goes into making a game, a lot of people might not think about it, but there's all sorts of technical aspects that they have to master to design a game, design and develop a game. And so our students come away from our program with animation skills, image editing skills, audio editing skills, 3D modeling skills, and then even working in game engines. In addition to the technical aspect, there's also this magical sense of game design that students come away with, which is basically how do you solve a problem that didn't exist yesterday, which when I worked in industry was constant. Every single client, even if we had the client before, would come to us and we had a new problem we had to solve for them. And so our game design students, yeah, we can learn how to make a Flappy Bird, but when they are learning how to create meaningful content in game form, they're basically having to invent something that didn't exist before, which is a great thing for our students to come away with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So to summarize it, it sounds like it's great to be a game design major because it's fun. There are a lot of experiential learning opportunities. You'll develop a lot of great skills that you can apply across the industry and across other fields. And it's also magical. You've got a lot of great experiences that you can have from that. So thank you so much. So Lucas, my next question is directed towards you. So can you tell us, why do employers like to hire game design majors?
Yeah, sure. And I've hired quite a few, and I've been hired myself, so I can talk a little bit about both sides of that. But I mean, so the simple answer in some cases is they're making games. They need people to do game design. And so no, that's not always the case, and I'll talk about that. But games come in lots of flavors. So some of those games are entertainment games, and so you're going to be, maybe going into like what a lot of us think about as the gaming industry, right? So you're going to be working on, mobile games, PC games, console games, things like that. Don't forget that there are also like physical games. D&D has had a resurgence, so there's like a big push for like there's lots of tabletop stuff. There's lots of lots of different kinds of games, and so obviously an employer would want those people because they need game designers. I think the other thing to think about is that a lot of games, like a lot of employers, are going to want things where there are games that are not for entertainment. They still need somebody to design those games. And so I got my start doing simulations, which are kind of game-like. And so I was hired for that. But then we ended up making a lot of educational games and a lot of therapeutic games as well. And so there are going to be employers that they want games. They need somebody with that game design skill set, but there are going to be outside of what, the normal entertainment stuff that a lot of us think of when we think about those. And then there are other times where you're not necessarily going to be hired for an employer that wants to make games, but it's going to be like game-like situations, right? So I mentioned simulations. That's an example of like, I built flight and ship simulators. That was kind of my start working in game engines, and then transitioned to games later on, but there's a lot of overlap there. Other things, so like I've got jobs where I was doing achievement system design or badge design, right? Which is very game-like, right? We have achievement systems in all kinds of games. And that's a big part of game design, is thinking about player progression, thinking about like goal setting and things like that. And so like I've had to do that for, so a lot of game-like settings. And then game designers, like a lot of employers, will just want the creativity. They'll want that unique experience, those unique opinions, and that kind of point of view, that somebody that comes at a problem from that angle that may, like when I do teach, I tell my students that like one of the most important things you can do as a game designer is just play lots of games. So to be honest with you, like that's actually something that is a huge value that you bring to an employer, because not everybody's a gamer, not everybody has like our hobbies and that kind of stuff. But think about all of the, like, you're only as good as chefs are only as good as like all the food they've tried and all that stuff. And the same thing applies for game design. And so you're bringing that experience to, and that creativity, which is awesome. And then finally, like I would say, like game design is, at the end of the day, is just design. Like you will be hired just as a designer sometimes. Now, the fact that you have a degree in game design means that you understand just the fundamentals of design and the stuff that we do in game design, thinking about long-term and short-term goals, thinking about giving the player autonomy, a sense of ownership, having a story, having like all those things. Like that's what you do when you're doing instructional design. That's what you do when you're doing app design. That's what you do when you're doing. So a lot of the fundamentals are the same. And so I think some employers will focus on the game part of game design, and others will focus on the design part of game design. And at the end of the day, you're getting a job. So cool, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So essentially just a lot of really great skills that employers across the board are looking for is what you'll develop, from critical thinking, creativity, the fundamentals of design. So thank you so much. That was great. So my next question is directed towards both of you. I'll have Professor Hegney start us. What are some great things that you can put on your resume as a game design major?
One of the things that I try to do for our students is to give them opportunities to speak at conferences, because whether they're going into the game industry or even if they're not going into the game industry, we do that through High Point University's High Perks. But I've also had students in game design speak at even ECGC, an East Coast Games Conference, and we've had probably about 4 or 5 students speak there on the topics that they've researched. So while you're here as a game design major, we professors are here to kind of give you that opportunity to do the research with us or on your own, and then present at conferences. Also clubs as well, be involved in clubs. And I guess another thing is to be specific, having the ability to, instead of saying, I did level design, saying things like iterated exterior scenes to encourage multiplayer cooperation is a much more specific and understandable line than just the generic level design. And one speaks more to what your actual experience is.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So of course, our skills, involvement, things like speaking at conferences, that's great. And I love how you brought up using your experiences in class and class projects and putting that on your resume. And we try to tell students that that is okay to do. And for certain industries, that's a really great way to showcase your experiences. And Lucas, do you have anything to add? What else could we put on our resume as a game design major?
Yeah, sure. And all the things Brian said were great. And I echo what he said. I would say in addition to like conference proceedings and stuff like that, like writing, like there's lots of places that will let you publish. So like when I graduated, my degree was in modeling and simulation, not game design, but I was working as a game designer. Then I was running a game lab. So, but like I posted articles in, which I think the site is, I don't know if it's still active or not, Gamasutra, which was kind of like at the time, like the industry, like one of the, so I posted 3 articles in there on my research that was all about it. And so it was 3 different things on achievement design, right? Now they're a little dated at this point, but it was like one of the first attempts, at least that I had seen about like trying to like have a design strategy or some kind of like science informed reason, a research informed reason that you're designing these in a particular way. They're a little dated at this point, and I don't know that I even agree with myself on all those things, but I got published. I was published in 3 different separate things in Gamasutra, and that was, a lot of people saw that, and that was good. A portfolio link is huge. If you can have a portfolio link in there, any kind of visuals, any kind of whatever, if it's not even like you're coming out of school, a lot of it's going to be school projects, and that's totally fine. I would say like do stuff on your own, do stuff like just, but having that portfolio link for people to see sketches, designs, project you worked on, anything.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. The writing experience, I think that's a great one to add there. And of course, your other skills. And then experiences in general, and that may include game design internships, or it may include internships in other industries, kind of like Lucas was sharing, something that may be somewhat related where you can still develop some of those skill sets. So thank you so much. So my final question, and I'll have Lucas start us with this one. What is your best piece of advice for a game design major at HPU?
If I was able to talk to myself then, like looking back now, I said, be patient. Like you have lots of time to find jobs that you'll have jobs that you like and jobs that you dislike, and that's okay. And not every job is going to be like this huge leap towards like this final goal you have. You should have big goals and long-term goals, but think of the jobs, and even down to the project level, how like have what they call a growth mindset, right? Like how is this project, how is this job, how is this conversation, every little thing getting me closer, making me better. And then I would say the last thing is like, don't be afraid to do your own thing. Like when my wife and I founded our company, which our company was run for 9 years, and we were like, we're going to go try something else now. But like, we just said, okay, we'll try it ourselves. We'll do it ourselves. And we each kind of had the skill sets we needed. We needed a couple coders, and we just did it. And it doesn't have to be your full-time thing, but there's nothing wrong with grabbing a couple like-minded people and making something that you would like to play. Start there. That's what I would tell myself.
That's great. Thank you. I love what you shared about being patient, trusting the process, and having a growth mindset to kind of keep moving yourself forward. And then also just going for it and trying something new. So thank you. And Professor Hegney, what is your best piece of advice for a game design major at HBU?
To become involved in the major, which means a lot of things. And one of those things is to join the clubs, join the game development club so you can start, being in the game jams, doing game jams. I'm going to make a plug for a little program I helped create for our game majors, which is the Game Ambassadors program. Just a host of challenges and quests for students to take part in and to earn points through their time here at HPU. The goal is to gain enough points to become an official game ambassador, but the idea really is to encourage students to just do as much as, not as much as possible, but just to learn what's out there in becoming involved in the game design community. I hope you do more than go to class and do your homework. And then something that Lucas kind of alluded to, is take those assignments and rework them. Make them your own. Spend, the next summer working on this game assignment that I or Hall or Bell gave you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So involvement, is the big piece of advice there. So getting involved in the clubs, participating in game jams, the Game Ambassador program, which you can learn so much from, and then also just playing games and thinking about refinement and improvement in all of the projects and different things that you're working on inside and outside of class. So thank you so much. So this concludes our Majors of the Month series for game design. So Professor Hegney, Lucas, thank you both so much for being here with us today. And students, I want to draw your attention to the screen, which you will see the link to What Can I Do with This Major, where you can continue exploring opportunities with the game design major. And you'll also see the link to be able to make an appointment with a career advisor in the Office of Career Professional Development so that we can work with you on your career goals and what is the best fit for you. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.